It all started one late afternoon when the sun was tired and the ocean breeze was humming like a lullaby. He had gone down to the lagoon to clear his thoughts, just like he always did when life became too heavy. The village of Amaudo was known for its mysteries, but that evening, as he sat on a stone beside the calm waters, he noticed something strange. Something, or rather someone, was in the water. A woman. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, or perhaps the shadow of a palm tree dancing on the water's skin. But as he looked closer, he saw her clearly. Her back was turned to him, but even from behind, there was something majestic about her. Her long black hair flowed like a river, and her wrapper sparkled in a strange way, like stars woven into cloth. She didn't seem to swim, yet she moved with the water, effortlessly, gracefully. The water seemed to carry her like a mother carries her child. His heart skipped. He wanted to run, but his feet refused. Something about her presence kept him there, like an invisible hand had grabbed his soul. Then slowly she turned, and for a moment, time stood still. Her eyes were not like any human eyes he had ever seen. They were deep, dark and calm like the bottom of the sea. When she smiled, it felt as though the whole lagoon exhaled, and a strange peace settled over him. "You've been watching me," she said, her voice soft, echoing slightly, as though it came from both the water and the air. He blinked. "I didn't mean to." She laughed, light and melodious. "You've always been watching, since you were a child. Even then, you felt the pull of the water." He stared at her, confused, a little afraid, but too fascinated to leave. "Who are you?" She didn't answer the question. Instead, she said, "Come back tomorrow, I'll be waiting." And then, as if swallowed by the water itself, she was gone. He stood there long after she vanished, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was it real? Was he dreaming? That night, he didn't sleep. His mind kept returning to her eyes, her voice, the stillness of the lagoon. The next day at the same time he returned, and she was there. Again, she didn't tell him who she was, but she spoke of many things, things no one else could know. She spoke of the pain in his heart. She spoke of his dreams. She spoke of how the world was changing, how power was shifting, and how certain men were being chosen to rise, if only they were willing to do what was necessary. Every day he returned. Every day she was waiting, and slowly his fear began to fade. He began to long for her voice, for her presence, for that deep feeling of being known without words. One day she touched his hand, and something passed between them, warm, powerful, electric. He felt strength enter him, confidence, boldness. "You are more than you think you are," she said, "but you must choose the path." He looked at her, torn between curiosity and caution. "What path?" She smiled again, and this time her smile held secrets. "Come back tomorrow, and I'll tell you everything." Then, like mist, she faded into the water once more, and as he walked home, the village around him felt different, smaller, duller, slower. Something inside him had awakened. He didn't understand it yet, but deep down he knew. This was just the beginning. The next day he arrived even before the sun had fully yawned open. The lagoon was quiet, yet alive. The birds whispered secrets, and the air smelled of salt, earth, and something older than both. He didn't have to wait long. She rose from the water like a shadow becoming flesh, not swimming but appearing graceful, radiant, calm. Her wrapper clung to her like the waves had dressed her themselves, and her hair shimmered with droplets of gold. "You came," she said softly. "I couldn't stay away," he replied, his voice steady but unsure. She studied him for a long time. Then, without moving her lips, he heard her voice inside his mind. "You're ready." He felt his chest tighten. Ready for what? She turned, walking along the shallow water's edge, and he followed, even though no words had asked him to. The air around them grew thick, as if time had folded its arms and stopped watching. "There are many who want what you desire," she said. "Power, respect, wealth, influence." He didn't respond. She was speaking the truth, but it sounded different from her lips, like it was no longer a desire, but a fate already written. They chase men, bribe kings, flatter pastors, and kneel in churches not because they believe, but because they're desperate. But few. She stopped and turned to face him. Few are chosen. His heart beat faster. "Why me?" he asked. She smiled. "Because you are willing to listen before you speak. And because long ago, even before your mother held you in her womb, I mocked you." The words chilled him. He felt both honored and disturbed. She reached into the folds of her wrapper and brought out a small, smooth black stone. It looked ordinary, but when she placed it in his palm, it burned slightly and then cooled, like it had tasted him. "This is the first key," she said. He stared at the stone. "To what?" "To everything." She turned away again. "But before the doors open, you must do something for me." His eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she gestured toward the water. "Tomorrow night a man will come to the lagoon. He is powerful, proud, and blind. He will ask you questions. Do not speak. Just give him this stone and walk away." He was confused. "That's it?" She gave him a look that made his soul shiver. "That is everything." Then the water around her began to ripple. Her image blurred like heat above fire. She was sinking back into the deep, fading like a forgotten song. "But wait," he called out. "What's his name? Why is he coming?" She didn't reply. Only the soft lapping of waves remained. He stood there, holding the stone that now felt heavier, not in weight, but in meaning. The sun was setting behind him, and for the first time in a long while he felt watched. That night, he didn't tell anyone. He locked the stone in a small wooden box under his bed. He tried to sleep, but dreams crowded his mind. Dreams of water, of fire, of voices whispering in forgotten tongues. And in every dream, he saw her eyes. Those deep, ancient eyes, watching.
Waiting.
The following night came with a strange stillness. Even the insects seemed to hush their songs, as if the whole town knew something was about to shift. He sat on the edge of his bed, fully dressed, the small wooden box resting on his lap. Inside it, the black stone pulsed softly, like it was breathing alive. His hands trembled slightly as he picked it up. The path to the lagoon had never felt so long. Every tree he passed seemed to lean closer. Every gust of wind felt like a whisper. Still, he walked, led by a force greater than his own will. When he reached the shore, the moon was high and full. It lit the surface of the water with a silver sheen, making the lagoon look like glass. And standing at the edge, as if waiting for him, was a man he had never seen before, but instantly recognized. The man was tall, cloaked in white, with skin that glistened like palm oil under moonlight. His beard was thick and full. His eyes were sharp, almost glowing. There was power around him, not noise, not drama, but silence, the kind of silence that demands your spirit to bow before it. "You have it," the man said without greeting. It wasn't a question. He nodded and extended the stone. His arm felt heavy, like the very air resisted the act. The man took it gently, then studied it like someone decoding a hidden language. "Do you know what this is?" the man asked. He shook his head. He remembered the lady's instruction, "Do not speak." The man smiled faintly, but his eyes stayed serious.
"This stone carries more than a promise," he said. "It carries a binding.
one that reaches both the water and the blood, the seen and the unseen.
He looked up at the sky for a moment, then back at him.
I don't know what agreement you've entered into, but now you've brought this to me. You've opened a door that will not easily close.
The man turned to leave but paused.
You will be visited,
he said quietly.
not by men, but by keepers.
The word hung in the air like a riddle. Then the man stepped into the lagoon. One moment he was ankle deep. The next he vanished like smoke swallowed by wind. The lagoon rippled once, then went still. Alone again, the young man stood frozen. Something had changed, but he didn't know what. He could feel it in the way the air no longer wrapped around him warmly. He could feel it in the silence that now echoed too loudly. That night he didn't sleep. But it wasn't just because of fear. It was because in the mirror his reflection blinked twice, and then smiled without him. The morning came, but it brought no sun. Clouds sat heavy like soaked fabric over the town, casting everything in a grey silence. The birds didn't sing. The air didn't move. Even the rooster crowed late, as if hesitant to announce a day it didn't understand. He hadn't slept, not even for a second. His eyes were dry but alert, haunted by the memory of his own reflection smiling independently in the mirror. A smile that didn't belong to him. A smile that spoke of something ancient that now lived inside him. He moved through the house like a ghost, checking corners, opening doors twice. And then he saw it. At the center of his sitting room, where no wind could have carried it, stood a feather. Not just any feather. It was obsidian black, long and gently steaming. As he bent to pick it up, a cold rush swept through his spine. He turned slowly and saw him. A figure stood in the doorway. Tall, gaunt, wrapped in a robe made of woven shadows. His skin was bark brown, eyes completely white, and his voice, when he spoke, sounded like 5 voices speaking at once. "I am the first keeper," the figure said. "The keeper of echoes." The young man couldn't respond. His tongue had forgotten how to move. "You summoned me when you handed over the stone," the keeper continued. "That act was a vow, and every vow draws witnesses." He stepped closer, his feet not quite touching the ground. "Your name now travels across 2 worlds your own, and the realm beneath water." He raised a hand, and from the floor rose ripples, like the lagoon itself had spilled into the room. "You seek power," the keeper said. "You ask for wealth, for position, for people to kneel when they hear your name. But did you ask for the consequences?" The room darkened, not like night, but like the very light had turned its back. And then the keeper showed him visions flashing before his eyes. Himself dressed in gold robes, crowds cheering, cars trailing him, banks opening vaults at his voice. But also his mother alone and crying, his sister unable to speak, his own body surrounded by masked dancers chanting, spiraling, offering gifts not to him, but to something inside him. The vision stopped. The room was quiet again. The keeper tilted his head. "Every gift has a gatekeeper," he said, "and every gatekeeper demands an offering." He turned to leave, but his parting words froze the young man more than anything else had. "The next keeper comes with fire. He does not knock, he does not wait. Prepare." And just like that, the keeper dissolved into smoke, leaving behind only the black feather and a faint, ringing hum in the walls. The young man stood there, heart drumming, mind spinning. He had sought a shortcut to power. But now he realized he had not entered a deal. He had stepped into a process, one not made for mortals to understand. That night the sky turned red. Not crimson, not gold, but a deep, raw, blood orange that made even the animals go quiet. Dogs whimpered and hid. Fowls didn't return to their perches. The wind? It no longer blew, it hissed. The young man stood at his window, watching as the horizon flickered, not with lightning, but with flame. Somewhere in the distance something was burning, but no smoke rose. Only heat and silence. He knew. The second keeper had come. At exactly midnight his walls began to sweat. Yes, sweat. Moisture poured from the cement as though the house itself was anxious. The mirror in his hallway cracked without being touched, and from his generator shed came the loud hum of something trying to awaken. Then it happened. The lights exploded. Not fizzled, exploded. One by one, every bulb in the house burst with a loud pop, showering sparks like tiny fireworks. Then, darkness. A flickering glow began at the front door, orange, hungry, and moving like a living thing. It seeped under the doorframe, curled up the walls, and took shape. A man, and yet not a man. Flames made flesh. His body was fire, but it didn't burn. His eyes were hollow sockets of smoke. His feet left scorch marks with every step. And his voice. It roared like a furnace, yet whispered like temptation. "I am the keeper of fire," he announced. He didn't wait for permission. He walked right in. "You sought light, didn't you?" the keeper said, circling the young man slowly. "You wanted to shine brighter than your peers. Now shine you shall. But fire—" He paused. "Fire does not choose what it burns." The keeper reached out and touched a photo on the wall. Instantly it curled, blackened, and turned to ash. It was a photo of the young man and his late father, the last picture they took before the funeral. Gone. "Sacrifice begins now," said the keeper. The young man stepped back. "I didn't agree to this." But the keeper laughed, a sound like metal drums exploding. "You agreed the moment you desired without wisdom. The moment you held the mirror. The moment you placed the stone in salt water and whispered your grandmother's name." That shook him. He had done it. 2 years ago. A joke. A drunken dare. He hadn't known it was a calling. The keeper stepped closer, eyes blazing.
"Fire will purge. Fire will refine. But fire will also devour. Choose what you will lose."
The young man fell to his knees. "Please."
But it was too late.
A scream ripped through the air, not his. His phone lit up, and on the screen was a text message from his cousin in Benin City. "Your mother's house is burning." The screen flickered. The power returned. But everything smelled like smoke and sweat and secrets. When he looked up, the keeper was gone. Only the smell of burnt things remained, and from outside, a stray dog howled, a long, mournful cry that sounded like a warning from the spirit world. He now understood. These keepers were not visitors. They were layers of initiation, and he had only just begun. After the fire, the world seemed quieter, not just in sound, but in essence, as if reality itself took a deep breath and refused to exhale. The young man hadn't slept in 2 nights. He tried, but every time he closed his eyes, he heard whispers, not from outside, but from within his own skull. Whispers of questions he had no answers to. Who are you when no one is watching? What is the price of attention? Would you still chase power if it cost your name? The silence wasn't empty. It was crowded, full of riddles and echoes, full of versions of himself he had long buried. The boy who cried at his mother's feet, the teenager who hated his father's poverty, the man who said yes to a deal he never read. By the 3rd night the keeper came, not with flame, not with noise, not even with a breeze. He came as a pause. The world blinked, and there he was, sitting cross-legged on the ceiling, dressed in white so pale it looked invisible. His skin was the color of dust. His eyes were sealed shut. And yet, he saw everything. "Sleep," the keeper said. The young man didn't respond. "Sleep," the keeper said again, but softer, slower, like a word that came from eternity. And he did. Not the sleep of rest, the sleep of travel. He found himself floating over his own village, watching his mother cry in front of the burnt ruins of her home. Then he saw his father's grave, and to his horror the soil was cracking open and something dark was rising. But it wasn't his father. It was a version of him from the future, a future where he had obeyed all the keepers. Where he was wealthy, yes, powerful, yes, but also empty, cold, alone. He saw the mansion, but not the joy. He saw the empire, but not the laughter. His wife was a stranger. His children feared him. And over it all stood the keeper of silence, whispering, "This is what unguarded ambition buys." Then the dream shifted again. This time, he stood in a chapel with no walls, only wind and stars, and a woman sat before him, her face hidden in veils, her hands glowing faintly. She said nothing, but in her silence he heard the truth. Every man who bargains with spirits must one day bargain with himself. He woke up sobbing, not from fear, but from recognition. He remembered now. The dream wasn't a dream. It was the third warning, the third offering. He had survived the keeper of blood. He had survived the keeper of fire. But the keeper of silence had given him a mirror of time. Now he had a choice: to walk the path they showed him, or to rewrite it with pain, with tears, but on his own terms. And that's when he realized the next keeper wasn't coming to give. He was coming to take. And when he looked at his hands, a thin gold chain had been wrapped around his fingers while he slept. A gift?
No.
A shackle.